As we begin the semester, it's important for us to kind of come up with a common understanding of the terminology to form a foundation of knowledge before we can then dig deeper into each of these areas. So, in its simplest form, before we talk about managing technology for strategic value, for example, we need a common definition of technology. Technology can be anything in its purest form. It can be any tool. And if you think back a few hundred years ago, um, what would be emerging technologies at the time, maybe the gas engine, maybe electric lights, have become commonplace. And since then, we've really um, decided that technology is more what we call high tech. Okay, iPhones, iPads, web cameras, um, the new lights, LED lights. Um, so, what is technology for this course? And again, according to the text, um, technology is a practical implementation of learning and knowledge by individuals and organizations to aid human endeavor. Okay, so we learn something, we implement something, um, and therefore technology is the knowledge, products, processes, tools, and systems used in the creation of goods or the provisions of services. Okay, that narrows it down to almost anything, right? Um, the key for this class is how do we manage technology? Okay, management technology is defined as linking different disciplines to plan, develop, implement, monitor, and control technology capabilities. That's a real change, I think, when you've seen as much technology changes as I have. Um, I first spent about 20 years in K-12, mostly at the high school, doing publications, working with a student newspaper yearbook, eventually doing web pages and interactive CD-ROMs and all kinds of things. The technology, when I started in college, um, changed dramatically. I can remember, as a student in high school, we would type up a story, we would send it off to a printer, who would then have someone set it in linotype and then bring it over to a press and lock it into a form and ink it and run the paper that way. In a very short time, it changed to photo typesetting, and I worked with that. And then in 1984, when the Macintosh came, that just revolutionized how publishing took place. It put people like a friend of mine out of business who had small print shops who used to do flyers and newsletters and things because you could do it at home. Um, it wasn't cheap at first. I think it was $5,000 to $7,000 to set up a really small Macintosh and laser printer. Now the quality that most of you can produce at home far exceeds what we could do back in the day in terms of type sizes, fonts. Now, if you work with InDesign, I teach a course in multimedia, um, and when you talk about desktop publishing, you can use InDesign not just to create a print document, but also to embed video and have it work in terms of an electronic document. That's incredible. So how do we manage technology now? It used to be simple. When I was first a dean, the dean for business and information management at Bristol Community College, we had computer labs for the students, and part of my job was to oversee them. Okay, and it was a one-man show pretty much. I mean, I could make the decisions. I could, if I had the money or found the money, I could, add new computers. I could bring in new printers. I could do technology that would lock down the computer lab so the instructor could teach and not have students playing on the computer. Um, but now in most companies, management really requires a whole group of people to be looking at it. Um, it's really an interdisciplinary approach. In some cases, it's a global approach. So I think you really also need to look at how do we deal with other ethnic groups and other diverse populations around the world. That's all going to come into the study of technology as we go on. How do you manage the process of making decisions? How do you analyze the industry? How do you look at financial analysis and forecasting and risk analysis? We'll talk more about that. Um, we'll talk more about innovation, the process whereby new and improved products are developed and transferred. Um, and then how do you manage that innovation? Again, who makes the decisions? Are there separate funds? Is there periodic reviews? Are there realistic expectations? How open is a company or a group of people to newness? I remember hiring, computer faculty members, and one of the questions we talked about would be what is the most recent quote technology you've learned, or software or program, because you want someone who's up on the current thing. But also a philosophical question sometimes we would ask is, should we as a faculty be cutting edge versus bleeding edge? How do you change? And traditionally there have been great debates over, you know, each version of Windows and each version of Office and when to implement them. Should we be running an older version because companies in the area are using an older version? Should we be at the newest version because that's what people are expecting? All of those things require a great deal of discussion, looking at strategic perspective. Um, so basically, as you read through the chapter, as you look at the PowerPoint, um, think in terms of what is technology, what is management, and how you um, become a leader, I hope, in terms of management. Chapter 2 goes more into strategy, the characteristics of strategy. It should be ongoing. It should define the nature of business. It should be purposeful. There should be a decision-making direction. Um, how does technology and the competitive edge advantage work? Again, continuous versus radical technology. We talked a little bit about that in terms of that bleeding edge or cutting edge. Throughout the semester, we'll look at the strategic management process, whether it's internal innovation or external innovation, basically as part of a multifaceted approach. Planning. How do you plan? How do you implement? And then finally, how do you evaluate and control the strategies and the technology um, releases, so to speak. So as you move through the chapters and you look at the PowerPoints, the next thing is we'll give you a chance to apply some of that knowledge. So in the discussion board this week, what I'm looking for is an article that provides some guidelines for managers on managing technology. Just try to find something that speaks to you, share what you think is important about it, and then look at what other students in the course have shared and respond to them in kind. There are a couple of reflective responses that just really reinforce the readings. They look at one's an article on the key to successful tech management. The other one's a video on strategic innovation. Again, just an opportunity for you to see some more current resources and information. And then for the action paper, come up with one example of technology based on our definition, and then look at providing a brief description or application of the technology S-curve or the Abernathy-Utterback model. Abernathy-Utterback or Utterback-Abernathy, depending which version of the article you're looking at, really kind of looks at the processes of of innovation, basically. So from low to high innovation, where does it start? Product innovation in the fluid phase tends to start higher, and then kind of work down through traditional and the mature phase. Process innovation tends to move up and then sort of slide down. as opposed to the S curve, which usually starts off low, moves through a period of growth and improvement, and then maturity, and kind of before aging and decline kind of gets to the high point. How do those differ? How do they apply to the example that you're looking at? It's really just a way to look at applying the information from the text and from that article on Utterback Abernathy. Just a couple of quick words on writing. In a master's program, the expectation is that you've got good writing skills, but also that you know how to apply citations and use references properly in accordance with APA. So in your action paper, if you quote somewhere, whether it's an article, whether it's the textbook itself, be sure to cite it properly, parenthetically, include a reference page at the end. Even in the discussion board, if you're bringing in some information from another source and you use a quote, you really should cite that also and put the references at the bottom. The reason for that is twofold. One, it provides credibility, but also it also shows that you're honest and ethical in your use of other sources, and also you're showing me that you know how to use APA style, which is kind of important to me in terms of credibility. If you're not sure, there are some really good resources. Wentworth now is a really good APA reference, and I put a link to that on the Blackboard site. If you need additional help, I really like the Purdue OWL site, the online writing lab. That's also a really good place to provide help with, especially sources like web pages and emails and things like that are hard sometimes to get your head around in terms of referencing it. To be honest with you, when I correct your papers, I usually have the OWL site open just in case I forget and I need to to refer to some things. The other thing why I think it's very important, especially in the discussion board, to put your citations is you may hit on something that another student really wants to pursue further. So they may want to look at not just your quote, but the entire document. By providing the reference, you're helping the student in terms of their academic research. You're building the body of academic knowledge, which is part of the goal of a graduate program. So enough said. Just be aware that that is something that I am kind of sensitive to. I really think that academic writing is important, even in an online course. And sometimes people think, well, because it's electronic, it's different. It's not really. Again, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, feel free to email me. My cell phone, I believe, is on the syllabus. If not, I'll make sure it's there. And good luck. Over the next week or so, I'll be looking for a quick paper. One page is fine, on which direction you're going to go to in terms of your final project or final paper. And it's not too early to start thinking about the group project midterm. So if you have colleagues here that you know and like to work with, now's a chance to just shoot me either a quick email and let me know what your pleasure is. Okay, good luck. I look forward to reading your action papers, participating in the discussion, and moving forward with this basis in technology as an asset to managing technology for strategic value. Have a good week.